So for this, we're going to talk about investing, personal finance. And because I get asked, on all my socials, I get asked all the time, can you give me some advice? What can I do with my money? How can I make more money for my money? So the first thing I want people to understand is basically, I talk a lot in my videos about how wealthy people make a lot of money from their money. So if you have like 10 million pounds, which a lot of wealthy families do, then they might make 300,000 pounds a year just from their money. It's important to understand that they're able to make that money because they are so super rich. So it's pretty ordinary for wealthy people, wealthy families to make sort of 3%, 5% from their money. That's where I get these numbers from. So then if you have a family wealth of 10 million pounds, you can make 300,000, 500,000 pounds. And that's easy enough to live a good life off. But for ordinary people who might have 10, 20,000 pounds, if you make 3%, it's better than not making it, but it's not going to change your life, right? If you have 20,000 pound savings and you make 3%, that's going to make you 600 pounds a year, right? Which is great. You want to make 600 pounds a year, but it's not going to change your life. So I have a bit of a concern that sometimes people come to me asking for advice, and often what they really want is kind of get rich quick schemes. We've seen a lot of people make a lot of money very quickly on things like Bitcoin and things like this in recent times, or like Tesla, these sort of things that have gone up super quickly. And I think often when people ask for this kind of advice, that's what they're looking for. They're looking to like make huge amounts of money despite only starting with 10, 20, 30,000 pounds. I think it's important for people to realize the reason that super rich people and very rich people are able to make huge amounts of money from their money is because they start with huge amounts of money. So these guys who already have even 1 million, 2 million pounds, that can make you like 50,000 pounds, 100,000 pounds a year to live off. But for ordinary people who might have savings of 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, you're not going to make life-changing sums. And people who do offer you sort of get-rich-quick schemes, invest 20, 30, 40,000 pounds, you're going to make 100,000 pounds. Please be very, very skeptical of those guys. They're probably not people you can trust. Realistically, what we're talking about is if you can make 10%, 20% from your money, then you're doing really, really, really well. But even that, if you make 20%, which is a really super good return, and you start with 50 grand, that's making you 10 grand a year. So it's obviously it's great money, but that's a fantastic return, and it's it's not going to change your life. So that's the first thing. When we talk about investing, you need to understand that it's not going to make you huge amounts of money unless you start with huge amounts of money. And that's an important point, because I often think people come to me from ordinary backgrounds, even maybe poor backgrounds like what I'm from, and they see investing as a way out of poverty, out of a difficult situation. But the truth is, the way things are set up right now, it's not a reliable way out. And everything you do, every way you try to make money by, for example, betting on Bitcoin or betting on the stock market is risky. You can lose money. Basically, it's not a reliable way out. And the reason why I talk about what I talk about, saying we need to bring in a wealth tax, is because these kinds of solutions encouraging ordinary people to gamble on the stock market, to gamble on cryptocurrencies, I think they're super dangerous, basically, and they're not reliable ways out. And the only way that people as a whole are going to improve their lives is basically by bringing in changes to the tax system and making the wealthier people pay higher taxes. Okay, but that said, there are a few things ordinary people can do, and we're going to talk about what you can do. Oh, but before I go on to that, I just wanted to quickly add, if you are lucky enough to have, say, 50,000 pounds, 100,000 pounds that you can invest, and that's kind of the amount of money that you really need to be able to make like really significantly sums of money that are going to affect your life. Just be aware that there's people out there that don't have that, and a lot of people don't have that. One of the pieces of advice I'm going to give is that if you don't have property, you should probably try and get property. Just please be aware that there's like a huge number of people, especially young people out there, for whom that's just not a possibility. So yeah, have a bit of awareness that if you do have money saved up, even though things might be difficult for you, there are other people out there that don't have money saved up and things are more difficult for them. When I talk about changing the system to make it fair for everyone, that's going to benefit you, but it's also going to benefit those people who have less. And I'm super aware of the people out there might be watching that don't have that kind of money as well. So what you can do really is super different depending on where you are. I'm not going to patronize people who are struggling to get by every day by telling them that there's much they can do. The truth is, those people are already doing everything they can, right? If you're struggling to pay the bills, you just got to keep struggling. Like, you're not going to make money from investing. And if you've only got a few £1,000s that you desperately need, please don't be dragged into get-rich-quick schemes you might see on the internet, like Bitcoin, like big bubbles in certain stocks like GameStop or like Tesla. you might have seen people make money off of them. Of course, it's possible. But the truth is, if you don't have a lot of money to risk, you shouldn't be getting involved, because those things can drop 80%, 90%. We've seen it happen in the past, and you could lose everything you put in. So if you're struggling to get by, the main thing you need to do is encourage people to support greater taxation of the rich, because that is the only way that's going to really help the poorest people in our society. If you're lucky enough to have saved up a bit more money, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 pounds, I would say your first priority should always be to get property. And this goes back to things I've been talking a lot about in my videos, right? So I've mentioned in my other videos about COVID that there's been a huge amount of money printing. That's going to devalue money. Devaluation of money is kind of a complicated concept, right? Because if you devalue money, we normally think of the price of whatever devalued things going down, but what is the price of money, right? The price of money can't go down. £1 is £1. But if money itself devalues, what we will see is the price of everything else going up. And in particular, because the people who are benefiting from COVID are largely richer people who tend to buy assets, I expect to see the price of assets like property, like stocks and shares, like gold, go up very quickly, whereas wages probably won't go up. Obviously, that's not good news for most ordinary people, but it's also not good news for people who have their savings in cash. So how do you avoid that? The main thing I would say is really avoid keeping large amounts of savings in cash. I know that we're conditioned to think that keeping your money in cash is the safest thing to do, but when you're in a climate like we're in now, where prices of assets are going up very quickly, including property, if you're sitting on £50,000 in cash and the house price doubles, which unfortunately it could do, especially here in London or even other parts of the country, that is really not a good situation for you, right? So I would really encourage, if at all possible, as soon as possible, get yourself some property, because that gives you the security that you can. That might involve trying to get together as a family, borrow money from your parents. It's important for people from poor backgrounds to realize the reason why young people get property is almost always because their parents give them money. And this is the thing I want to let people know, because I know that people from my sort of background, poorer backgrounds, they see other people buying property and they don't understand how it's possible, because it's almost impossible if you're in London, even if you're on like a high salary, like 40, 50, 60 grand, it's impossible to save up that deposit. It takes years and years and years and years. But people from richer families are getting that money from their parents. So, it's an unfair system, but if you're from a poor family, the most important thing is to keep hold of property that you have and to try and get property for younger people. That's going to be the real challenge going forward, especially with property prices increasing as quickly as they are. Now, I know that's not super positive advice for a lot of people to hear, because a lot of people, they simply can't buy property. And this is why I do the work that I do, because I predicted a year ago that property prices were going to go up, despite the worst economic crash in about 100 years. That's insane, but it's happened, all right? We've had the worst economic crash in 100 years and property prices have gone up. That's because of the way that governments have dealt with the crisis, which is to print money and give it to rich people. The people that get hurt from that are poor families that don't own property, but also ordinary families. I want to send a message out to ordinary families that own property that might think they're winning when house prices go up. So the older members of those families that own the houses, they might think they're making money when house prices go up, but they need to realize the only way to make that money is to sell their house. And if you sell your house, then your kids won't have houses. And if house prices double, then your kids won't be able to get houses with their own money. So the end result of this massive increase in house prices is basically more and more ordinary families are going to lose their houses over the long run. So I would like to have a message for older people that own property that might be excited when house prices go up, is think about how this is going to affect your kids and your grandkids. The end result is basically going to be that most people in this country will not own property in 20, 30, 40 years time. And the amount of people who own property is going to become less and less and less and less and less. And that's going to make life worse for most people. So look, I see it in the families around me, right? My friends who are from richer backgrounds, their parents give them 100 grand. They remortgage the house, give them 100 grand, and the kids buy property. But my friends who are from poorer backgrounds, I've got friends who are from single parent families, their mums have to sell the house to get by, and the kids get nothing. So what we are seeing now with this massive increase in house prices, don't get excited about it, because what it is causing is a divergence, basically, where if you've got 10 properties, of course that's great. You've probably got a stock portfolio as well that's gone up 10 times. But if you have no property, your family's in big trouble, it don't bring me no joy to say that. But if you have one property, probably also your kids and your grandkids will become unable to own property in the future. So really, if we want to stop that as a group, we have to do something about the inequality. And that's why I say we have to tax the super rich. It's the only way to do it. But as an individual, like I say, I get asked what can you do with your money. The main thing is protect your property. And if you can, buy property. If you're young, if you can, buy property. And if you're older, help your kids buy property. Yeah, you know, that's not a positive message, but it's not a positive time if we don't fix the economic system. But yeah, if you are unable to buy property now, which I understand like a lot of young people are, and you're worried about the deposit you've saved up being devalued, there are sensible things you can do. Don't keep it all in cash. Invest in stocks and shares, invest in gold. I've got a lot of money invested in gold. I also have some invested in stocks and shares. Stocks tend to do well if the economy is good. So if you're an economic optimist, you might want to buy more stocks. Gold tends to do better when the economy is bad. So if you're an economic pessimist, you might want to buy more gold. I've gone more gold. If you buy a mixture of both, then you will probably be a bit more secure whichever way it goes. The best way to do that for an ordinary person is to open a stocks and shares ISA. That's if you're here in the UK. You can put £20,000 into that a year. You can just buy normal gold funds or global stock tracker funds. I recommend buying tracker funds that buy a basket of stocks rather than individual stocks because they're less risky. You can only put £20,000 a year into an ISA, but if you have more, you can just get what's called a general investment account. There's plenty of providers online. I use Free Trade, I use Hargreaves and Lansdowne, but there's plenty of providers that will give you ISAs, that's independent savings accounts. They have some tax advantages. And if you have more money, general investment accounts, GIAs. But yeah, if you have money saved up, you're worried about it being devalued, buy stocks, buy gold, don't leave it in cash. Obviously keep some cash. And I have to add to that, like whenever I give advice like this, every single time you buy an asset, gold, stocks, anything, there's risk involved. I think they're gonna go up in general because cash is being devalued, but that's no guarantee. Be prepared when you put the money in. The value fluctuates day to day. It could go up, it could go down. I think you're more secure holding stocks and gold over the long term than cash, but yeah, there's no guarantee. When you buy things, there's risk involved. Yeah, have you got any questions on that? Housing could be so much more affordable, wages could be so much higher, and we could have so many more options in how we live our lives. Some of them put a lot of money into paying economists and think tanks to tell you that inequality is important for the economy. That is not true.